Last week I had a
Okay.
conversation with an HR professional, but then I thought to have a follow-up conversation with somebody who's in the legal space. So a quick background of who Uche is. Uche is an entertainment lawyer and associate for commercial transactions at Primera Africa Legal. I got that right?
Yeah, you did. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank thank you so much for joining us. So has work been as effective working from home for you as a legal professional?
Coincidentally, it's been, I would dare say it's been more effective because now every single work you do is monitored, really, because you have like a work schedule, you know. We have daily team briefings, so of you. So
Mm.
it's a lot more effective. You know, at work, when you go to work, as long as you show face, yeah, you know, there's a presumption that you are working, right? But here you actually have to deliver results.
All right, fantastic. So let's get right into the conversation we plan on having today. Today we're talking about companies' breach and restructuring of employment contracts. So a lot of companies have been
Yes.
hit by this coronavirus. But then some companies, like I had a conversation with an HR professional last week, human resources of my friend's company, had with him, stating that they would so there's a restructuring of his contract stating that he wouldn't be paid till the coronavirus ends, like the pandemic is over. Or
Mm,
when he has to do certain jobs, he'll just be paid stipends based on that role, that particular job, but not his normal salary. So what's your take on that? Because this is what is happening in a lot of firms. A lot of firms are thinking about, oh, what's going to be our financial state in the coming months. So they're just taking the quick move of just playing with people's contracts.
okay. Thank you for your question. I think first of all, it's quite unfortunate, you know, what's going on in the world. But you know, with pandemics come natural consequences. But the question I would ask really is, first of all, is there a contract? Is there a written contract?
Mm,
Now,
mhm,
labor laws in Nigeria are there are lots of labor laws actually, but the two types of employees that are recognized under Nigerian labor law. Okay, so we have the workers. So workers are basically employees that do manual and clerical work, and you have
mhm,
non-workers. So those ones do executive work, technical work, professional work, as the case may be. You understand? Um,
mhm,
so the Labor Act, we have the Labor Act, which primarily caters to workers, right? So, back to the question I would ask is there a contract? Because
For my
for
friend, yes, there is.
yes, so is there a contract? What does the contract state?
Yes, there is.
What is there an employee handbook? Is there an employee handbook?
Mhm.
Yes. So it's from those questions you would now develop into the next. After review, you need to review what the contract states, what it states really, especially as it deals with force majeure. Now, force majeure basically are contracts that free either of the parties, you know, from certain obligations in cases where some particular events occur. So events like a pandemic occur, you know. So it could free either the employer or the employee from performing his duties.
Mm.
Are you following me? Right?
Yes, I am.
Um, and I would dare say that before you can vary any employment contract, it has to be by the consent of the employer and the employee. You know, but the employer can terminate a contract. You know, now there's certain schools that say you have to give reasons. You don't have to give reasons. What matters is you need to give notice as well. If your most contracts states that the employee has to give 1 month notice. You understand? The same thing goes for the employee and the employer and the employee. You have to give 1 month notice or salary in lieu. Okay, so specific. Those are factors that the company usually considers before they make decisions, and that's the reason I presume why they have not let go of some people, because the severance packages and everything might be more than what you initially want to save in the first place. So typically, companies usually, because they are the providers, they are the employers of labor, and that's why in
Okay.
many organizations you have trade unions. So those trade unions, they come in and they try to balance the scale, try to negotiate terms that favor the employee. So it does put, the long and short, yes, it does, that's the reality of it. But then it depends on what the contract states.
So for companies at this time who are just switching up contracts, like churning out new contracts for team members because of the pandemic, what do you have to say to them?
I mean,
Because I know
okay.
I know of people who have entirely different contracts because of the pandemic now.
Okay, so I think what I would do really is it's up to you. I think it's up to the employee really at the end of the day. Now, if you do not want to accept the terms, you can either revert and say, okay, these terms are not favorable. I would be much obliged if you could negotiate these terms. Now, just note that in such a situation where the employer is not willing to budge and say, oh no, this new contract, you must take it, you are well within your right to refuse it. But note that your former contract is still running. So if they want to terminate your employment, they have to do it in line with what's stated in your former contract. You understand?
So how does the second contract apply? Where does the second contract apply?
Yes, so of course, two contracts cannot run at the same time, so you have to terminate the first one. You have to terminate the first one, and then you sign the other one. But then there are certain situations where by signing the second one, you have waived your rights under the first contract. So by signing the second one, you have invariably said that, okay, the first one does not apply anymore. It's now redundant. Okay, so that's now outdated and out of what applies. But what is the thing with agreements is that one of the vitiating factors is coercion. So you must not be forced to sign any agreement. If you're forced to sign an agreement, it means it is just one party that signed the agreement.
By force, what do you mean?
Okay, so you have different coercion. So by force, you could be threatened that, okay, if you do not sign this agreement, your benefits,
you lose your job.
Your benefits, yes, you won't get your benefits, or you won't get benefits that accrued to you previously, not prospective benefits, of course. The employer needs to compromise. The employee also needs to compromise. Because
compromise. What do you mean by compromise?
Yeah, I would explain. So right now we're facing this COVID-19 pandemic, right? And the reality is that the effects are going to be seen when all this is over, because it will bring back memories of 2008, 2009 global economic crisis. No money, because companies get their money from clients, and when the clients are not making money, the money does not flow to the companies as well. Employee itself should be able to negotiate other terms if he wants to stay. It should be willing to. Okay, so let me put it that way. It should be willing to. It's not coerced. It's not mandated to, but it should be. And it's up to the employee to accept those contracts or to negotiate them. It's all about negotiation, really. You understand? But I like to, as much as I'm a lawyer, I love to talk in line with reality as well. The reality is that when employers give those conditions, it's not, they don't leave much room for negotiation. So it's almost like a give and take, like take it or leave it. You understand? And it's unfortunate, but what I would say is that in that situation, you need to understand that your formal contract is still subsisting, it's still
Bound,
running.
binding.
So even if you don't accept the new contract, the employer is still bound. It's still bound. So in the case of notice, most employment contracts give room for notice. The employer must give notice before terminating the contract. Okay. Also payment of salary in lieu, where that's applicable as well.
For people who are still working on certain clients as they used to, nothing really
Yes.
changed with their work, but there's a change in their contract. How do they resolve this?
Okay. So yes, like I said earlier on, it's you're running on a contract. That's the reality, and it's just about merging what the law states and what reality is. You expect some termination incoming. You could. I mean, depends on the motive of the company, really. But make sure that if a termination is coming, it's done properly. It is done properly. You could compromise, or you could push back. So there are three things. You could accept it in its entirety. Say, okay, so this is where we're at now. Fine, let's keep it up. So you could reject it. Now, when you reject such proposals, you should anticipate that your contract could be terminated shortly, in the future. Okay. So three, you could push back and say, okay, I hear you. I understand that these are the conditions now. However, this pandemic is also affecting myself, also is affecting everybody. So it will only be fair if we can reach a middle ground. So you're negotiating it and saying, okay, this let's say, for example, the salary you're offering now is really too low. Okay, especially in this time for myself. Increase it a bit, even though it might not be as much as I used to earn before, and I think this is also a point, a vintage point for organizations to think about the future of work, working from home, and just to reduce other burdens, the money that you would pay for transportation, you could save it. So you can use those points, as negotiating chips, future negotiating chips. So you could say that, okay, so if I'm going to accept these terms, it means I will be allowed to work from home for a certain number of days in a week. You can use it. So I think you understand my point like that. So if you accept a certain term, you can push back on other terms as well, other working conditions as well. So those are basically options that you can take. It's just that nobody can have it all at this point in time. You'll be fortunate to have it all at this point.
All right, nobody can have it all. You'll be fortunate to have it all at this time. Thank you so much, Uche, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And clarifying.
Right.
You have an amazing day ahead.
And you too. Bye.
All right, that was Uche. That was Uche. Uche is an entertainment lawyer and an associate for commercial transactions at Primera Africa Legal. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us.